Greetings, everyone, and welcome to OSI Today, the podcast featuring news and views from around the Office of Special Investigations. I'm Wayne Amon from OSI Public Affairs, and I'm joined on this inaugural headquarters edition by the Vice Commander of OSI, Colonel Shan B. Nuckols. Colonel, welcome aboard.
Hey, thank you very much, Wayne. It's a real honor and a pleasure to be a part of this.
Now, it must be gratifying to be part of another tool to further the command's strategic communications initiative, especially during the new normal of COVID-19.
Absolutely. It is exciting. You know, the boss was very clear when he took command that he had a vision on how to try to communicate differently than some of the other OSI commanders, right? Not substituting his in-person visits, but, leveraging all the tools available so that he could try to reach as many people as possible. So it's difficult enough with 3,400 personnel across over 260 offices around the world, right? Time and distance are a barrier, and COVID just amplified that, so much more. And so, this is part of the General's vision. So it's great to be a part of the first one out the gate.
Sir, let's get into our subject for today, which is exactly how good OSI units become great. Now, you wrote a commentary about that particular topic in a recent edition of OSI's Global Reliance magazine, but you've also been a proponent of that thought process for quite a few years now.
Yes, so it's something I think about often. So let me start with, I like feedback. So, and I think a lot of people do, right? We want to know exactly what our bosses want from us.
Right.
And so I found about 4 years ago, I found that when I took Region Command, that I was really interested in having an honest dialogue with the different field commanders on not just how to accomplish our mission, but how to set yourself apart from the other detachments. How to, what do I think the best OSI units look like? And so, I took my experience over 6 commands and over 25 years and came up with this list.
And a very inclusive list it is, too. As we get into it, the first point you made in your commentary, Colonel, was about integrity and accountability. How exactly does accountability play into OSI's core value of integrity?
Right. So, one way to look at integrity, it is a steadfast adherence to a strict moral or ethical code, right? So accountability is us being answerable for adhering to that code, basically saying, like, did we do what we said we were going to do, right? And so what happens with accountability, especially when we don't meet standards? And so how might this look at an OSI unit, right? So let's use an example. Say a unit runs an operation and some members of the team do not do what was part of the plan. Okay, so what happens next? Do those members own up to that without having to be challenged?
Right.
Does anyone even challenge them? And then the issue gets ignored. What if the one who made the mistake was the leader, right? So what happens then, right? Sometimes it's difficult to tell your boss, hey, you screwed up, right?
Right.
And so, but it is so important that we have environments where we can have honest conversations, especially nowadays, right? So I wrote this first list over 4 years ago. I wrote the commentary in February, right? So pretty much pre-COVID, the tragedy of George Floyd, pre the unrest that's going on, right? So how powerful is it right now to be able to have conversations in this environment where folks can say, hey, I don't feel safe about the way that we operate because of the pandemic. I don't feel I'm scared, I'm angry about what's going on with the unrest and what went on with police brutality or the murder of George Floyd. So, we need those environments where our folks can feel safe to give each other honest feedback.
Right. Now, as far as a unit's level and scope of their impact, I know it probably varies from unit to unit, but what beneficial impact do OSI units enjoy when they think outside of their regular mission sets?
Yes. So it's all about making us better, right? So what are you doing beyond just what you think your detachment's mission is, right? Beyond your base. So are you actually coming up with new tactics, techniques, and procedures that we can use throughout OSI, right? Things that we can benchmark.
Right.
Are you coming up with new policy? Different ways that we can adjust and adapt, right? Are you contributing to your wing in unexpected ways, just instead of just being, well, that's our local OSI detachment and they run investigations, right? So that's what I'm getting at there, is that the best units, the best OSI units are actually having an impact across the command and across their wing, not just for their specific geography or their specific line of effort.
Right, right. Now, I know OSI is a big proponent of compliance. Now, how does adhering to established procedural norms yield some positive results down the road for various units?
In a couple different ways. So by the nature of our assignments, we have a limited amount of time at each location. Plus, we are a distributed organization. So it's not unusual for us to start an investigation or start a step in a process and then hand that off to someone else. For us to be successful, everyone has to do their part. There's a great amount of trust that we put in each other to have ownership in our individual pieces. But if one of us doesn't do the right thing, then in the worst case, it can have a catastrophic result for the people whose lives we touch and for our communities, like we saw in the Sutherland Springs tragedy, right?
Yeah.
But also, because we have that churn, we have to have processes in our office that live beyond personality. So, and too many times, you walk into a detachment, or you walk in somewhere, and you're like, hey, we've been here for 70 years. Why does it feel like we're just now, learning this all over again, or we're just now creating a process to do this? Why do we have something that lasts beyond the personnel churn? So.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That's for sure. Colonel, you hear a lot about people never stop learning. You're always learning every day. So you're learning something new every day, right? Hopefully, especially a person like myself with gray hair. But what do leaders of units, when they continue to learn, what do they bring to a unit's table by them continuing to learn on a daily basis?
Yes, so I think our general expects all of us to be learning leaders, and when you do have learning leaders or a commitment to learning within your detachment, it sends a very powerful message when the leader up front says, I know I'm not perfect. I'm going to make, but I'm going to make deliberate choices with my time, my energy, and my attention to be better. It leaves space open for the team to have discussions about how we can get better in one thing, and then how we can get better in all things. Then specifically, it means that we can all get better as individual technicians and leaders, and then we can benefit from sharing each other's diverse experiences.
Right. So no matter how long you've been with the unit, you can always learn from somebody about something.
We have to, absolutely.
Yeah. Two words that I think are really go well together are innovation and flexibility. Now we're in 2020. Why must the unit change with the times? That may seem like an obvious question, but some people like to be set in their ways, but change is good, really.
Absolutely, right. So one of the analogies I use often is, we're like sharks. We have to keep swimming or else we'll die, right? So we have to evolve, right? Because our mission, our customers, our technology, our knowledge, the threats to the Air and Space Force, they all evolve, so we have to adapt as well. And our boss has challenged us to be innovative, be flexible, and he means it, right? So it's a really great time. If you have a good idea, but you feel like you weren't getting any traction before, because maybe you thought nobody cared, or OSI wouldn't listen, or we're too stuck in our ways, those times are over. Like, the boss is driving innovation, not just because he likes new ideas, but because he understands how important they are to us being effective.
Right. Very good words for sure. We hear a lot about the word risk, and people are sometimes hesitant to take a risk because they don't want to look over their shoulder, or they want to know, they think of the worst that's going to happen. But you're a proponent of kind of calculated risk-taking. How would a unit benefit from going about it that way?
So probably one of the most important challenges our people face is, where do I take risks? That's a question one of the most important questions they have to ask themselves, but it's also one of the most challenging. We simply do not have the people, the resources, and the time to do everything. We rarely have all the information that we need to make informed decisions. So in order to be successful at taking calculated risks, we need good prioritization, clear guidance from our bosses, and we need a culture in the office that allows us to make mistakes. The key, though, is to learn from those mistakes quickly and then move forward smarter.
I see. So there is a method to the madness, quote unquote, if you will. It's a calculated risk. You have to weigh a lot of factors before you take that risk, I would imagine.
Absolutely, and so that's why it's so important that our leaders and our teams are situationally aware of what's going on in their AOR with their detachment, right? So, and when you are aware of what's going on, then you can be more than just reactive, right? So the more that you're aware, the more that you can anticipate. When you understand the environment that you're working in, the threats, the challenges, the opportunities, the priorities, when you know how all of the pieces fit together, then you can better understand the second and third effects of your decisions, and you can anticipate issues before they become problems, meaning that you are best prepared to mitigate beforehand or craft solutions. So you can be much more proactive and play offense instead of just playing defense.
So you don't necessarily have to be able to be a fortune teller to know what's coming down the road if you can adequately plan for it.
Well, it comes with experience, right? It's not
Right.
easy.
Sure,
So,
sure.
the first 90 days to 100 days that a leader's in their unit, that's one of the things they should be focusing on is trying to understand, the space that they operate in.
Right.
And it comes with time, but over time, what I would expect is the best commanders, the best units, is to be ahead of that information curve.
I see. We hear a lot about the word teamwork and team all over the place, but there's a phrase called, that you alluded to, I believe, selfless teamwork. What does teamwork bring to an individual within the unit?
Well, we're all stronger, we're all smarter together, right? So you're not going to be able to be as effective as possible if you're just operating by yourself or operating on your own self-interest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, we're small teams. We have to rely on each other to be able to be as effective as possible in the way that the Air and Space Force needs us to be. So,
Sure.
So that's one of the things I enjoy the most about being an OSI is working in teams, collaborating, cooperating.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up with new ideas together, brainstorming together, executing missions together. You get a really tight sense of camaraderie, of family,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
when you're all working together for the same goal, right? We're all
Yeah.
rowing in the same direction. So,
Yeah.
and then to watch, to be able to contribute to a team, and you watch people rise up and meet their personal, professional goals. That's a tremendous feeling. I think that's what our best commanders should be, and our best leaders should be focusing on.
It also seems to me, Colonel, that it's not just the nuclear team of OSI, but it extends out to the law enforcement team, and it just kind of branches out. It's like being the hub of the spokes on the wheel that go out to the entire team concept.
Absolutely. When you've got a culture of teamwork in an office, and that just comes natural to everybody, they start to seek out, okay, who else may have, who else may be a stakeholder in this? Who else can we work with to better, counter the threats to our base, or better solve a case, or
Sure.
better conduct our training, or whatever it is that we're trying to get done. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very good thing to think about, that's for sure. Timeliness has always been a major factor within OSI as far as executing its business on a daily basis. What does that say about a unit that really stays on top of things in a timely manner? Not just meeting deadlines, but from the overall scope of performing their mission.
right. So it really comes down to does that, if a debt is not timely, have a reputation for not being timely on certain things, whether it's investigation, whether it's decorations or evaluations, whether it's certain tasks, right? Then you start to ask yourself, like, does that detachment, does that leadership really understand, what their priorities are, right? Are they have they articulated, those priorities and requirements, to their first personnel? And are they giving good guidance? I start to ask the questions like, what are they paying attention to, right? What if they're not, it'd be one thing if you're doing really well in your investigations and your operations, and then maybe you've taken some risk on some other things, but then I want to hear that from those commanders. When I have that conversation, I want to hear back, we purposely took risk, getting back to that calculated risk.
Right.
We purposely took risk in these other things because I felt like these other things are important, but sometimes what you find is that there's a lack of understanding of what the requirements are. There's a lack of organization. There's a lack of follow through. But it's really just one data point. It's one red flag that allows me to have a conversation. So I think over time, people have worked with me. I may have a bit of a reputation of where I'm paying attention to timeliness over other things, but it's not about, well, I want you to have all your LMS done, or I want you to be, you're on your TMTs, I want you to be 100% on your evals and decorations and not being late. It's not about that, right? It's about the general. That is a factor that I look at to see what is the health of that unit. What are the leaders paying attention to? What are they? How do they do their decision calculus? How are they doing their thought processes, right? How do they decide where to take risk? And so So timeliness is important, specifically for our investigations and our operations, because we have people at the other end of those, right? We have, bad guys that may deserve justice. We have, victims who are, who are seeking some resolution, right, for their the crime against them. But we have decision makers that are trying to make informed decisions, that are waiting on their cases. But it really is just an overall. To me, it's one of the things I look at to how is a detachment, is it healthy?
Sure. Sir, you alluded to this a little while ago, communication, the flow of communication, units being able to talk to headquarters and vice versa. Exactly how pivotal is communication up and down that chain?
Right. So one thing that has been a constant in my career is that there seems to be some sort of feeling like the higher headquarters is the enemy, right? Is the adversary, right?
Us versus them, that kind of thing.
Exactly, right. And sometimes it can go both ways, right? But so there seem to be real disconnects between, what the point of view from each of the levels, right? And so I really try to work hard to have to break down those walls so that a detachment understands it is okay to call the region and ask a question. It is okay to, bring a new idea. It is okay to say, I'm really, I have some bad news. And then let's work on it together, right? Just like also from the regions, if you see something like maybe there's a trend of, maybe you think that, let's get back to timeless. Maybe you think timeless is not going well. Maybe you think they're not running a case a certain way. Let's not jump to conclusions, right? Let's call the detachment and find out what's going on.
Right.
But there's this really interesting thing that happens is where it's human nature where we, when we don't meet, an expectation on something, we judge ourselves by our intent, right? I say, well, I meant to do a good job. I just didn't do it. So we kind of let ourselves off the hook, right? But if I see somebody else not meet the mark, I judge them on the results, right? Instead of judging their intent. So let's not be afraid to talk to each other. Let's not jump to conclusions. Let's have the kind of environments where we can, talk to each other up and down the chain of command, and then we're all going to be better for it because we, can get questions answered more quickly. We can learn best practices. We can find out what the ground truth is and how we can best help each other, right? So, sometimes, they say where you stand is where you sit, right? So in the headquarters, we try to not have such a headquarters-centric view. We try to really understand what's going on in the regions in the field so we can make good policy, make good resource decisions, right? Make good operational decisions so we can help the field. But if we don't talk to each other, we're never going to get to that understanding, right?
Yes, sir. Now, before we wrap things up, sir, on this inaugural Headquarters podcast, you wrapped up your commentary in Global Reliance magazine by saying that this whole thing kind of boils down to a matter of setting the right culture within the command. You want to expound on that just a bit?
Right. So these aren't just 10 different itemized tasks that, if you do these 10 things, then, you're going to be a great detachment.
Kind of a checklist thing, yeah.
Yeah. It's really down to what is the culture in that unit, right? What are you doing? What are you striving to do? What are you doing together? But I'd also understand it's not a complete list, right? This is just my own opinion based on my own singular experiences.
Right.
And, I really hope what it does is it starts a conversation and motivates folks to sit down and really think about, well, what do they think makes a good unit great, right? So what do they think that we need to do so that we can, rise all of our detachments up and to help meet the boss's intent and get after the mission like the Air and Space Force needs us to do so.
Right you are, sir. We've pretty much come to the end of our first podcast, sir. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
Just thanks so much, Wayne, for your leadership on this. The boss is super excited about this and all the ways that he can connect with our folks now, right? He is a genuine and authentic leader, and he loves to get out and talk to our people and hear from them and engage with them and tell them how proud he is of them and look them in the eye and shake their hand and say thank you for the hard work and the sacrifice. And so, but these tools are a great way to help stay connected when he can't be everywhere. So,
Colonel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Wayne.
And thank you all for listening to us today. For OSI Today, I'm Wayne Amos saying so long for now.